Hey, what's up everyone? Today we are getting started on the next part of our outdoor kitchen, and it's an exciting one. See how it goes. Okay, so to get started, we are doing a little bit of prep work before we can set the oven on the slab. And so step one is to put weep holes in. And so if I pull some of this back, there we go. You can see I've drilled 3/8 inch weep holes all the way through the slab, through the backer board, all the way through the bottom. And so that is a hole all the way through. And there's two more. There's one about over here and there's one about over here. And I've tried to line them up. If you can see that it lines up with the cracks or the crevices in between these. Oop, bad camera. Lines up with the crevices in between the tiles. And what the purpose of this is, the tile lifts your insulation board off the surface. And so you're going to have 4 inches of insulation board that keeps the heat from leaving the oven, but it also absorbs water. And you don't want it to absorb water. One, that will prevent your oven from performing, and it also could ruin the insulation. And so what you want to do is try and find some cheap mosaic tile like I did here. You lay it face down, so the finished side of the tile is facing on your cement slab, and the backing would face up. And you drill your holes, and if water ever gets in here, it's going to flow through the tile mat and eventually hit one of your drainage holes before it would ever build up enough to reach your insulation and get that wet. And so it's cheap insurance. Tile I used was unfortunately not on clearance. They didn't have enough clearance tile for me to use, so I had to get this. So I spent a little bit more money than I wanted to, but it's cheap insurance at the end of the day to make sure your oven performs and lasts. So I got my holes drilled and I've got the tile down. You can see here I've marked my front edge of the oven, which will be on this line. I've also marked my center line of the oven here, and I have also marked out the edge of my wall for the enclosure that I'm going to be building. That's going to enclose the pizza oven. So I have all my lines ready to go, and so the next step is I'm going to go get the insulation board, 2 layers, both 2 inches thick, so there's going to be 4 inches of insulation here. And we're going to go ahead and set that out. We're going to trace the floor onto the board and cut it where needed to make sure that the oven sits on the board all the way around the pizza oven. So let's go do that now. All right, bringing you back here. So we got a good start. So I'm gonna walk you through what we're doing here. So got the insulation board down, got my center line marked on the stand, center line marked on the blocks, and then just using this, make sure that we're on the line, and then that's on the center line of those. And so got everything lined up. And so went ahead and put all the pavers down and then or the floor blocks down, and went ahead and traced around it. And once I traced around it, I found that I was going to have to cut some pieces to fill in some holes. And so off the back, I just used this cobalt fine tooth handsaw, and it went through it like butter, honestly. So easy peasy, no big deal there. And so just cut off 2 pieces, put them there, and that will give enough room. And what you want to make sure of is that you leave enough room for your oven, which the Premio that I have is 3 inches. And then you also need another enough space for your insulation you're going to put on top, because you want the insulation to also sit on top of this board so it doesn't wick up water. So for me, I need a total of 7 inches on the outside of the floor. And so I'm going to be a little bit short right here, but once I put the oven pieces up, I'm going to be trimming a lot of it off. So once I have the scraps, I'm just going to put a piece there and on the other side as well to fill that in. So that went easy peasy. And then I just put down, so you can see a little bit of mortar here. That's refractory, so I have a little bit of refractory mortar. There's some seams here. I just didn't want the sand to fall through. So just taking a precaution. I had a kind of a board that was slightly damaged on that side, and the hole was probably the size of a penny. I just didn't want the sand to drop down into my mosaic tile, because that would obviously defeat the purpose of the drainage. And so I just went ahead and mixed up a little refractory mortar and filled in those holes just so the sand wouldn't fill them and drop down into the mosaic tile. So once I got all that done, and then it's time to permanently set the blocks, the floor, and I got to start on it. I want to show you what I'm doing. So for this, I am using Quikrete fine grade sand. So the instructions call for 60 mesh sand. I'll be honest, not sure what this is. It's fine. It should work just fine. So that's what I'm rolling with. You can also mix this up with some fire clay to give it more of a, I don't know, a sticky texture, if you will. That way you can more easily trowel it and kind of tap each tile down like you would maybe if it was actually being mortared down. You can also use a refractory mortar and actually mortar these down directly to the board, but I like the idea of being able to easily replace them someday in the future if these would crack or disintegrate or something would happen to them. If you just lay them on a bed of sand, you can, not that it'll be easy, but you could at least attempt to get it out to replace it. So that's what I'm going with on this. And so my approach is I set them all, and then using a level, I kind of got an idea of generally what corrections I was going to have to make. So like at the front, I knew that this first tile was going to have to be brought up in the back. This tile was going to be low on the side, so I knew I was going to have to build this side up. And so I kind of got a mental picture of all those adjustments. And then now as I pulled them all off, now I put my sand down. Now as I'm putting my sand down, I kind of know generally the adjustments I'm going to have to make on each block. These blocks are kind of heavy. And so, you know, if you put it down, it's probably best to put a little too much and then shimmy it side to side to get it where you need it, other than pulling it back up, having to add more, because they're kind of a pain. These are big blocks. So then, once I get it down, I'm just using this V-trowel that you just use for mortar to help spread it. And so basically all I'm doing is just using it as if you were doing mortar. Just to kind of get an even base, and then adding more back to where I know I need to build it up, so on and so forth. So pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the camera and try and get this finished up. Bring it back when I'm done. So that wasn't too bad. Again, I find it to be easy to set them first dry, figure out what you think you need to do, and then set your sand based on that to get you close, because it is not easy setting these down, pulling them up, setting them down, pulling them up multiple times. So yeah, it's probably best to get it right as close as you can right the first time. And I think that's where using a actual mortar bed on this would be easier, because then you can actually tap the floor tiles down to where they need to be. Also be aware, the tiles themselves are not straight, and so like this tile here, it's flush here, it's flush here, but I have, I don't know, 16th inch lip there. So that's kind of annoying, to be honest, because you know, when you put your pizza pill in here, it's going to want to snag that. So it's going to be kind of something I'm going to have to be, you know, kind of dealing with probably during the life of the oven. I don't know if I can grind that lip down a little bit or not, but well, it'll work. We'll live with it. But otherwise, yeah, it's all fit well. The floor tiles fit well. Everything is nice and level. I used my big screed level, sat across this when I was done, and it's spot on. So I think it'll be good enough to cook some pizzas on. So, all right. So next, I'm going to go ahead and get some of this sand cleaned up, blown off. That's excess. And then the next step will be to prep the cast pizza oven pieces and get them staged and get some help and try and get them set on this base. So bring you back when we start that.